Hey everybody, Roxabox90 here with another Top 10 EDH Commander Card Countdown. Yes, we are up to the multi-color Planeswalker lists for EDH Commander. We're going to go through my top 10 multicolor Planeswalkers in the format. We're going to follow very strict criteria as we have before. The first is that it's a multiplayer only list, not 1v1 French duel list, anything like that. Specifically for multiplayer. 2, the Planeswalkers are only multicolor. If you guys want to know about the monocolored ones, we have a separate list for that. Monocolor Part 1 has the monocolor Planeswalkers. We're looking at ones that are very good in certain kinds of decks, and that those are towards the bottom of the list, and then the ones that are better in more decks are towards the top of the list. And we're also considering the fact that we want as many abilities as possible to be directly relevant and important in multiplayer Commander. Mentions, we'll start with Ajani Vengeance. This guy has been and continues to be a house in more standardized constructed environments, but for EDH Commander, he's not particularly fantastic. His ultimate is cool, rarely going to get there, and his other abilities are fairly weak in a format. It's not nearly as splashable, doesn't target as much stuff, and his +1 is far more reliant on your opponents having things tapped down than it would be being able to flip things around. He also is far less political in the sense because he will likely draw hate if you're keeping people's stuff down rather than tapping things down and then untapping other things. We'll get there. He's alright. Domri Ray, this guy is really big deal in Standard, has been for a very long time. Commander, not as good. The +1 is very narrow. Yes, it works well with other stuff, but it's fairly narrow. His -2 is an interesting way of protecting himself and is fine, but it's not nearly as effective a protection than other ones on this list. His -7 is cool, I guess, if you're running a creature heavy deck, but as you notice, all his abilities, they may be cool, but they're very, very narrow in terms of the kind of deck that they fit in. It's particularly just for aggro and in certain circumstances, not nearly as useful as he is in more standard environments. Sorin, Lord of Innistrad, this guy is pretty cool, and I think he would be far more expensive if he hadn't been reprinted in the dual decks, but his first ability is okay, especially if you're running tokens, but it's lifelink, not death touch. His -2, if you're not running a lot of creatures, it's not that powerful. And then his -6 is cool, but come on, it's going to be quite difficult to get up there to that. And even if you do, it's just a 3 of removal for a lot of work. I think he works very well in specific token-focused builds, and that's about it. Then we have Garruk Relentless. This guy, I think the problem is he doesn't flip. He starts off really bad. He might be okay if you're trying to blow out a Voltron or early game, but for 4 mana, he doesn't really do that much for you. And on the other side of him, his -1 is really the most effective ability, but by the time you flip him over, he's not going to have that much on him. He's going to be under 3. He's going to be 2 or 1, which means that you're pretty much going to lose him very, very fast. I think he takes way too much work to get where he goes. Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas, he's actually not bad in artifact decks, but he's very narrow. Artifact focused. Very artifact focused. If you're running an artifact deck that runs these colors, cool, but otherwise, I wouldn't really talk much about him. And we'll wrap up our honorable mentions with Ashiok, Nightmare Weaver. This guy is just plain bad. I'm sorry, he is. His +2 doesn't really do much except make people angry at you. His -X is just way too narrow, way too limited for this format. And his -10, sure, that's cool, but you're never going to get there with him pretty much across the board. So let's get to our actual list. Number 10, we'll start with Xenagos the Reveler. He is pretty cool. His +1 is able to provide you ramp, which is good for aggro. His 0 gets a 2/2 haste dude. If you're running aggro, it gives you the haste ability or just protection for himself. And his -6 is okay. It's not fantastic. I mean, if you can do stuff with Scroll Rack or whatever, and you can somehow set him up where he's particularly powerful, great. But he's very focused on aggro. Green-red aggro pretty much is his most powerful focus, and none of his abilities are particularly awesome or board-changing for the amount of mana you're going to sink into him. He's fine. Number 9, Ajani, Mentor of Heroes. This guy is pretty cool. I've talked about how great he is in the green-white colors, which is what he is for. Being able to effectively do a mini tutor as a +1 is fantastic in these colors where card draw is not super widespread. It's not the easiest to do. And being able to pump up a group of creatures, I like that you can decide to put 3 of them on 1 if you want a Voltron, or spread it out. And his -8, it's not particularly game breaking, but it does put you far in the lead in a multiplayer game. It's very, very cool. Number 8, we have a battle over Sarkhan the Mad or Sarkhan Vol. I actually am not sure which one I like better. Sarkhan the Mad really is much more powerful than you would think in this format, because his being able to reveal the top card of your library, get in your hand, he does damage to himself to it, but it's effectively a card draw, in at least for his colors, is not a very common effect to have without having some life loss anyway. And then his being able to force sacrifice, yeah, you give him a 5/5 dragon, but in this format where humongously powerful creatures are bound, that's really not so bad. Giving them a 5/5 while getting rid of, I don't know, Eldrazi or something huge could be a big deal. And then his -4 is good in Dragon Tribal, very narrow in that sense. Sarkhan Vol, on the other hand, like, he's much more splashable, much more useful, so he's probably the 8 on this list. Ral Zarek, this guy, I love his +1. His +1 is fantastic. Being able to tap down a permanent and then untap another, you can play politics, or you can help yourself while hurting the most dangerous person, or whatever shenanigans you want to do it. The fact that it does 2 things per use makes him far more useful and flexible than Shani Vengeant. His -2, the 3 life doesn't really matter, and it's effectively the same effect. Being able to knock out a Voltron commander, or get rid of some annoying combo piece or something. And then -7 is actually hilarious, and very useful in this format. Yeah, you'll probably only get 1 or 2 of them, but that's still pretty good. Kiora the Crashing Wave comes in at number 6. She is nice in that she can prevent Voltron, because it prevents all damage dealt by and dealt to a permanent, so you can do it to a commander, and suddenly they can't kill you with commander damage, which is very, very effective. Or just any humongous creature. Prevents infect, prevents so much stuff. It's very, very flexible. And then the -1, drawing a card, I'll take that, and then getting extra land, so it ramps and card draw. That's fine by me. And then -5, you get massive board presence for the rest of the game. I think overall, all 3 abilities are pretty good. -5 is probably the weakest of them, but I think that in a multiplayer arena, she's pretty solid, very solid. Then we have number 5, Dack Faden. This guy is designed to be powerful, and he is. Gives you can play politics and let someone else be able to draw and discard, or just for yourself, drawing 2 cards, discarding 2 cards, that's fine. That's pretty solid, being able to filter through your hand. -2, there's always powerful artifacts in multiplayer Commander. Great ability, just being able to take it. And then -6 is very, very good for Izzet colors, which is where he's most powerful. So all 3 abilities are very strong, and as an Izzet Planeswalker for 3, it's a very powerful, effective card, but he's a little narrow. Number 4, Venser the Sojourner. This guy is crazy. Exile permanent you own. This means if someone steals a permanent, you can flicker it out and get it back. If you do things with Gilded Drake shenanigans, you take it back. Flicker decks, this guy is amazing. -1, creatures are unblockable. Huge for Voltron, huge for aggro, huge for anything, really. It makes, I mean, it's ridiculous. It gives you all your creatures unblockable. And then -8 means you win the game effectively. You will become the arch enemy if -8 goes off. But the fact is, all 3 of his abilities are very, very strong. I'd say his only narrowness stays targeted most of the time in some kind of control flicker variant. He's rarely used outside of that, and that makes him a little bit narrow, but he's so powerful in this format. Number 3, Vraska. She is 5, being able to protect herself effectively, and if someone says, oh, I gotta get rid of her, you're gonna trade most effectively if she's up. -3, destroy target non-land permanent. This makes her able to remove something in a very flexible manner. She can destroy anything but a land. That flexibility really matters. As we talked about in Karn in the last video, being able to hit any permanent is the best, of course. This is pretty darn close to that. And then her -7, not crazy, but it can work very well in token builds, or even just having 3 creatures that someone has to prevent all 3 suddenly makes the game much more politically dicey. Your opponents can't just be leaving their field wide open with this kind of effect. But I think her first 2 abilities are what make her particularly powerful, and her -7 is a nice little extra backup. Number 2, Nicol Bolas Planeswalker. He is one of the most powerful Planeswalkers in the format. In fact, in all time, but in this format particularly. But he does cost 8 mana. Destroys target non-creature permanent. Anything as a plus. That's pretty awesome. Again, flexibility in this format matters a lot, especially multiplayer. Boom. -2, take control of any creature. Well, there's a lot of good creatures in this format. There's a lot of Voltron that you can stop with this. It's pretty flexible. And then -9 effectively knocks the player out of the game. And if you get him up to above -9, suddenly everyone wants to be your friend, which makes for very good political shenanigans. All three of his abilities are insanely powerful in this format, and I have to say, the only reason he's not number 1 is because he's 3 colors, which makes him very inflexible in terms of the number of decks he can be in. But he is the most powerful. And number 1, Garruk Apex Predator. I know you wouldn't expect the 2015, the newest set, we're going to have a Planeswalker that is the best multicolor one in the format, but it's true. His problem is, the only problem with him is that only certain kind of decks can use him. Other than that, blows up another Planeswalker as a plus. Gets a 3/3 beast with Death Touch. Death Touch in this format is great because it makes people not want to attack you and gives you the advantage on the attack. -3 destroys, so it destroys a Planeswalker or destroys a creature, and you gain life, but that doesn't really matter. Destroys stuff. And then -8 makes a political game by saying, okay, everyone attack that guy, or everyone attack that guy. Suddenly that guy doesn't like you, but everyone else does, because now they can attack him with huge benefits. Every single one of his abilities is great in this format. He's not insanely expensive. 7 mana is totally reasonable. And he's not 3 colors, he's 2, so he can fit into more decks than Nicol Bolas can. He's huge, splashable, awesome in Commander. He'll be probably pretty good in Standard, but in Commander, wow. Alright, so that's my top 10 EDH Commander multicolor Planeswalker list. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, tap the like button. If you're new to the channel, check in and subscribe. If you guys haven't heard about my Patreon page, I'd love if you guys go check it out and see if you guys are interested in getting in some of the great rewards and helping the channel out so we can get more of these top 10s to you faster, smoother, and with even higher production quality. Thanks for watching, everybody. Roxabox90 signing out. I'll see you guys next time.